Уважаемые коллеги, добрый день.
Dear colleagues, good day. We begin our work. All speakers are on stage. And I would like to say a couple of words of introduction. I'm Sergei Mitingov. I'm Vice President of Russian Union of Entrepreneurs and Industrialists. Last year, as part of St. Petersburg Economic Forum, we signed an agreement between RSPP and the German Chamber. And a lot has been done during the year, and this session is, well, it's not like summing up the results, but anyway, it is final those relationships which we've worked during the year, and of course we expect these relations will be continued. And it's glad to see that the number of companies from the Russian side is growing steadily, and there's great interest to German-Russian initiative, GRID. And I would like to give floor to Dietrich Möller, Siemens. And Siemens has been in Russia since 1881, and a lot of interesting projects have been implemented. One of the first projects of Siemens in Russia was electrification of the Nevsky Prospect and Winter Palace, the well-protected facility right now. Dietrich, you have the floor, please. Thank you for the invitation, dear ladies and gentlemen. Please give the slides. Is it possible to show the slides? The first question to the audience. Who is using regularly, who orders taxi via internet regularly? Who is using Yandex Taxi, or who orders products from internet? Well, that's more than a half. So welcome in the digitization world. And I think that this process from the external trade is the next slide, please. It looks like this thing isn't working. So today, this process is moving from trade to industry. And really, these companies like Amazon or Yandex or Spotify, they emerged from scratch practically, and within a very short time span, they've acquired a large customer database. And what's their secret? How did they manage to achieve such success? Reason number one is a highly efficient use of contemporary IT technologies, a high level of automation, high computation power, and great efficiency and minimum failures. Reason number two is the use of open ecosystems and internet. As a result, availability from any point of the world 24/7, and including the customers and partners into the added value chain, so they work very efficiently. Could you move a slide back, please? Reason number three, they've changed the business models. So they've used new approach to developing products and services. And very often they work by trial and error method. And by doing so, they've attained great success. And as the opinion poll showed, as the survey showed, in the world of consumer goods, and everyone is aware about that, what does digitization mean for industry? Digital transformation in industry is going full blast, and what's most important here is that we don't just love IT solutions, but it improves productivity, efficiency, and ultimately competitiveness. As an example, we can take Sapsan. So that's railroad transport. Russian railroads. Russian railroads has extensive fleet of rolling stock, infrastructure, and digital technologies help the operator go back, a slide back, help the operator to enhance the operational availability of the fleet, the precision of movement along the route, the efficiency, and it helps reduce the cost. The example of Sapsan trains, as you see, this is a means of transportation which is working in Russian environment. The mileage per year is 500,000 kilometers, and at the same time Sapsan has 99.8 operational readiness availability, and this is even better than Shinkansen Japanese trains. How they do it? That's through efficient use of IT technologies. Every train regularly transmits megabytes of diagnostic information into the service center, and during maintenance at night time, and it's done with the support of a highly efficient logistics, spare part availability, and maintenance crew readiness that maintain the train. And very often they know, even they know that in a week, in 2 weeks' time, certain parts, certain components needs replacement. Next slide. The same can be done at other engines and trains, and here on the slide you see our joint engineering center that Siemens operates together with the Russian railways. That's a data processing center near Moscow, and there's a new generation of staff of Siemens and Russian railroads. They are mathematicians, they are statistical analysis specialists, they are IT specialists who maintain those IT systems. Next slide. What it means for industry. Mainly it means a better flexibility of production, individualization of production. It reduces the time needed to bring the product to the market. It improves the quality of the product, bringing it to a new level, and it reduces costs. I know it sounds familiar, but if we're talking about such sophisticated products like cars, automotive production, designing new models, one can reduce costs 50% through these solutions. And life cycle control solutions reduce production costs significantly and improve the quality. Next slide. We've been working with Maserati, and we were facing this new task to create a new model, Ghibli, and as a result of using of these technologies, including shifting from designing to manufacturing, they've reduced the designing time 50%, and it means they've reached the market sooner. The designing costs were reduced 30%, since the new model was designed and tested based on IT solutions. The productivity improved, and they've achieved a totally new level of quality. So all these technologies and solutions are already used. We'll already have it. And the next slide, apart from railroads, we have a strategic cooperation with KAMAZ, which is present here at INNOPROM as well. And KAMAZ is using the technologies to reduce the costs in a sophisticated design project, 50% reduction. Service documentation is an important thing, the time of drawing it up, and changes in the documents, and the transition during the life cycle transition to efficient maintenance and repair documents. So Siemens, and in collaboration with KAMAZ, have achieved a great level, and I'm sure that KAMAZ will be a leading company in digitization in Russia. Summing up, the key thing here is not to fall in love with certain IT solutions and how it looks, but it should be the approach from the point of view of use and value for all customers. There is a lot of value here, and I'm sure that at any company, in any sector, starting from oil and gas, and we're talking about oil and gas field today, for example, to machine building, to aircraft industry, to automotive industry. These technologies are used and will be used in future. And I would like to say that this is the reason why we, within the German-Russian initiative, created the GRID initiative on digitalization, and we work with the Ministry of Trade of Russia. That's the 4U initiative, and this is the data initiative and cyber security initiative. And today we're planning to sign an agreement together with Telma and Kaspersky Laboratory in this area. So, digital era, not only in trade but also in industry, has begun. And I think that for all companies, it's not a challenge, it's a chance. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you.
Следующее слово.
I would now like to give the floor for the next speech to Natalia Paramonova, who represents SAP Russia, the largest company in management automation. Almost all major plants and companies are customers of SAP. Natalia, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Sergey. I suppose I cannot control the slides from here. Okay. First slide, please. Good afternoon. We should go back in the slides. Slide 1, please. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's great that we have such a high attendance of this session. It probably proves that the topic we are discussing today is interesting for everyone, which is very nice. Indeed, about a year ago, several German companies, together with their German Chamber of Industry and Trade, of Commerce and Industry, got together with a few Russian companies, Rostelecom, SPP, and they launched this initiative of digitization. What's the essence of this initiative? From our perspective, it's about sharing the experience that the German industry has, share it with Russia quicker, so that the Russian industry could use the advanced digital technologies that Germany currently has. It's no secret that for a while Germany was a little bit behind in technological development. In some years, Japan made a great breakthrough along with other Japanese countries, but today Germany is at the cutting edge of digitization nowadays, and everything that's advanced in this sphere is done in our country of origin, and we are proud of that, and we would be happy to share this experience with Russia. What's happening? Actually, it's all the trends mentioned by Mr. Miller, the trends that generated in consumer industries like book selling or manufacturing, light-moving consumer goods, banking services, telecom. All these trends are now moving into the industry, like customizing big products for one customer and getting rid of the middlemen, and trends like accelerating the product development cycle, everything that we are used to seeing in industries servicing us, the end consumers. Now it's required from the industrial sectors. Let's look at a few examples. Next slide, please. Examples of specific transformations that are now happening in proper industrial companies. The first example is from the automotive industry. We all know Ford. And the great invention by Henry Ford, the conveyor, what was the point of this invention? Making sure that a huge number of people could get a car, could purchase a car. So Henry Ford invented a conveyor that drastically reduced the cost of car manufacturing, and Henry Ford said that you can get your car in any color as long as it's black. Nowadays, a real revolution is happening in car manufacturing, and one of the most advanced companies is Audi. They discontinued using the conveyor. That's a real revolution, because at the beginning of the new century there was this revolution in car building, and here you can see a mobile platform that's programmed for a specific order of a specific car for a specific customer. This platform is moving along the shop to various stations that are in charge of assembling a specific part, and this platform is telling the assembly station what to do, or what kind of headlights to install, what kind of engine, and so on. So Audi is now working on conveyor-free production, and most of the manufacturing is automated. Another interesting example is Kaiser compressor. They were facing a huge competition in the market and a huge price pressure, and they revolutionized their own company. They stopped selling compressors. They are now selling pressurized air compressors, mostly for the construction industry. So they stopped selling their compressors because the customer doesn't need a compressor per se. The customer needs a cubic meter of pressurized air. So now they are selling cubic meters of pressurized air, and they service and provide maintenance for their compressors completely. So they shifted from selling goods to selling services, and it would be impossible without the huge technological background. They developed a very interesting platform where all compressors are equipped with sensors, so they transmit data on their status, so they do predictive maintenance and predictive repair. That's a real revolution from selling goods to selling services, and it's going to continue. Actually, today we talked with the Director General of Belaz. We all know those huge, wonderful trucks, dumper trucks, and they realized that the customer doesn't need a dumper truck. They need a cubic meter of coal, for example. So they are also shifting to these business models. And a similar example, Kronos. We don't know this manufacturer. It's they are monopolists in bottling manufacturing, in bottling equipment for soda drinks like Coca-Cola and so on. And they also faced a problem of manufacturing customized bottling lines for various producers like Coca-Cola, Unilever, and so on. And with this digital platform, they also built a system of digital control from design to manufacturing. I could give many more examples. Next slide, please. And we believe that currently the Russian industry, in the Russian industry, most of the sectors are already mature enough for digitalization, and there are some individual examples of that even, but we believe that most of our customers are asking what to begin with. That's their main question. We realize that we need to digitize. We realize that we need new business models, and competitors are on our heels, and consumers are spoiled with Amazon, Facebook, and immediate deliveries by IKEA. We are an industrial company. We want that too, but what can we do? So what we offer to our customers specifically. Firstly, we have big libraries of so-called case studies from European and Russian experience. So if the customer comes and says, we want to start with something, we can select many interesting examples for the so-called inspiration, to get inspired with what other companies have already done. I've only given 3 examples, but I could give much more, many more, and that's what we suggest that the customers begin with. Let's look at other places, what's done there, maybe even go somewhere to see with our own eyes what's being done, and then we can think what you can start with. The second very important element, we actually brought to Russia the so-called design thinking methodology. This is a certain methodology, sequence of steps that make it possible to build a roadmap for any specific company. And I would like to say that on July 16, just in a week, at our headquarters in Moscow, we are opening the Digital Leadership Center, where the design thinking space is going to be one of the major components, and we are inviting you all to the opening of this innovation center. And the third important element is we offer all our clients using our step-by-step methodology to do prototypes and pilots, because all these new digital technologies are, it's hard to imagine what they are and what they can give your company. So we suggest cooperating together, and the main approach is building contemporary digital labs. Today we have signed a cooperation agreement with the pipe metallurgical company on creating such a lab based at the venue of the Ural Federal University, where we are supplying the required equipment and technology so that the students, together with this company employees, could work on various digital pilots. And of course, a very important topic is to do something, you need to do it quick. And it's important that we have a data processing center in Russia. We built this center and are developing it together with Rostelecom, and we can provide all our solutions as services. So it's happening quite quickly and efficiently. That is why the main idea of this initiative, GRID, is about German companies, and we believe that we are very well immersed in the Russian market, and German companies can share their experience with some specific solutions for the Russian market, and we are ready to work on these digital scenarios with everyone. And as for a specific solution, Sergey mentioned that GRID has been operating for a year now, and we had many interesting events and discussions with Russian companies. And as a specific suggestion, we are now discussing with civil aviation the issue of creating a digital platform for promoting the civil aviation products to international markets. We know that the development of civil aviation is included in the Digital Russia strategy, and we believe that a digital platform should help to bring our quite advanced products to the Western market by organizing the after sales servicing and working with customers correctly. Next slide, please. So this very specific initiative is currently being discussed with the Ministry of Industry of Trade of the Russian Federation and SPP, and we have the experience of working with Airbus and Bombardier in this area and with other major aviation manufacturers. So we can share this specific experience and build a roadmap for developing the civil aviation in Russia and promoting it to the international markets. Thank you very much. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this Digital Leadership Center. We will come for sure. I'm confident that many of our attendees will join too. I looked at the Siemens stand in the exhibition today. Very cool stand, very well organized, as Dr. Müller said, and you can see it all with your own eyes. I also went to Cifra stand, and they have this interactive game in their stand where you can get into a steel smelter's shoes and feel how the artificial intelligence is smarter than the human, where you can operate an oven and a furnace, and you can compare the abilities of a human and the AI, and the computer can do a much high quality job. So Igor, the floor is yours. Thank you. Please tell us what the company is doing today.
Yes, thank you very much. We're a company that is in digitization of industry, of production, like Sergey has said. And in general, it is important to mention, like what Dietrich told before, that digitization is not automation. Not at all. First of all, this is about changing how the company operates, how the enterprise operates. And Uber is a classic example here, which is there. I mean, the taxi drivers are the same, the cars are the same, but how it's organized, this is what's different. And we receive the service in a different way, and the business model changes. So we, jointly with the colleagues, were looking for ways to digitize contemporary enterprises, because objectively, no one knows. I mean, if you look 5 years back, 10 years back, then no Stanford could imagine there would be Uber or Airbnb. It turned out to be different. The innovations came seemingly from nowhere. It's a principally new trend, and it is why we've created a GRID, other initiatives. It's because we need to be in this together, not just the companies who are professionally involved in industrial automation, but also those companies which are supposed to change the way they're organized. This is a key element in my point of view, and from the point of view of RSPP, I can say that we have several working groups within the International Committee of RSPP. That includes the working group on artificial intelligence, industrial internet, and it involves those Russian companies which want to change. So if there are representatives of those companies here who want to change, please, you're welcome to join, because this is where the best practices, the best experiences are exchanged, and the opportunities which are provided by digitization. On our side, together with the Ministry of Trade and under their support, we decided to understand to what extent do the Russian companies think about digitization, how prepared are they for that. And we've carried out a survey, and the result of that survey I would like to share as part of my introduction. Probably some of you have seen an RBK publication. There was like a title saying that Russian companies are not ready for digitization, but our surveys proves the opposite. 60% of manufacturing enterprises which we talk to, and we talk to more than 300 enterprises, they have a very specific and clear digitization program. So there is this focus, and all companies are thinking about it. 40% are in a stage of a high degree of preparedness, and Kamaz and Rosatom are wonderful examples, and they can in fact teach others about digital transformation. So there's also a dedicated person, like a director on innovation or digital economy, who is responsible for digitization in the company. Why I'm saying it? Why is it important? This is important for those well, I mean, there are much more than 300 companies in Russia. There are tens of thousands, but these are basic steps. You need to have strategy, you need responsible people, you need to have a clear understanding of what you're doing. Those companies we've included in our survey, they expect specific economic effect from digitization. The number one priority here is to enhance income through improved efficiency. Despite the fact that they talk about digital models, service models very often, but our companies are also aim at improvement of the efficiency of manufacturing processes, and this is achieved through changing in how the company is organized. Well, Sergey has advertised our very interesting game, but this is the case when you take the processing stages, you take business processes, and you change them, and you change the key processes. You can't be careful here. You can't go through small pilot projects which will never be economically efficient. This is a way to nowhere. You cannot assess a big-time result by implementing secondary pilot projects. You need to involve your key processes. A separate story is with AI. And according to our assessment, 3.1 million of units in industrial and manufacturing facilities will be connected to internet. And we all see that, and this is the key, the basic element. If you do not gather data from your workshops, then what Uberization, no Uberization would be possible. You need to connect the people, the machines into the system. Planning an Excel sheet is no longer an option. And if we take artificial intelligence, there are several areas here: machine building, discrete manufacturing. This is a big area of application of various technologies based on artificial intelligence, process manufacturing in the second place, then power industry, and all the rest. What it tells us about? Well, first of all, it tells us that Russia today has a very good chance to be a leader in artificial intelligence. Why? Because we are an industrial country. We have a lot of enterprises, manufacturing enterprises. Many of them are up to date, and they were built, well, shortly before the Soviet Union ended, and many were transformed and converted in the period of new economy, and a lot of investments went in there. And here, examples can be given like metal industry and oil and gas, but in general, a lot of enterprises are quite up to date, and that makes it possible to implement new solutions very quickly. For example, we were able to implement more than 30 projects in artificial intelligence in Russia alone. The question is traditional: what to do? We know what the potential is, but what is not clear is why nothing's happening. Where are the great success stories? That's the question. But on the other hand, we need to realize that industry is a rather conservative segment. It's not a bank. It's not retail, where you change the software and it works. It's much more difficult than that with the industry. Although the number of projects is small, but the interesting trend is large manufacturing companies are creating their own IT teams inside, and they create their own software projects and products. It means there is interest, and the companies want it. Whether they will be able to, that's the question, and that's why we need a joint initiative. And we are in contact with the startups and IT vendors. That's why experience exchange is tremendously important within GRID, within RSPP, and that's why we need more communication. We need to share the stories, the exchange experiences, and those are available not only in Germany. We have a lot of Russian companies, especially in metal industry, chemistry, petrochemistry, which are showing outstanding results in the area where they work from the point of view of digitization. And expert assessment, expertise is vital, because without a profound knowledge of processes, whether we're talking processes in chemistry or metal industry, or assembly, or designing, or building prototypes, without profound knowledge, expert knowledge, nothing's going to work. That's why joint work is important. And in conclusion, since Dietrich started by reminding us about Uber and modern IT companies, I would suggest I would well, you know, there are 9 Google principles of innovation. You can find them, but I like several of them. Number 1 is Google says you need to be able to make mistakes quickly and not to be afraid to make mistakes. What does it mean? You need to do a lot of pilot projects and do that very quickly. You need to find those which are efficient and discard those which are not working. So the time of 1 year, 2 year projects is, well, for such companies as Google and for large industrial companies, it's becoming a thing of the past. Another interesting thing is 20% of the working time of their staff they dedicate to innovations, because they say innovation come from everywhere and nowhere. You don't know where the next innovation is going to come from. Not always from a CEO, sometimes from a shop floor supervisor or a simple worker. So everyone, every member of staff must be involved in innovations. Even if you don't believe it's important, still they must be involved. Number 3, what's important is that innovation is not just about motors, not just about slide packs. It's about engineering, technical expertise and knowledge. If the company is doing something inside, you need to the foundation should be the knowledge you have in your company, and the knowledge you don't have, you borrow it from other places. That's why the cooperation between large industrial companies, IT companies, and maybe consulting companies, this is the soil which can be a foundation for the digitization era, which hasn't come yet, but we are going in that way. Thank you, Igor, and I would like to thank Igor not just for his brilliant presentation, but in RSPP, he always presides during all the working meetings. So thank you. And going back to the review, which Igor has talked about, we also have had a similar review, and I don't know why RBK said the Russian company is not ready. On our side, we saw that 70% of Russian companies want to join the digitization. Probably not all of them know how. And when we started asking them how are they planning to digitize, only 40% were able to provide an answer, because digitization is a vast field for work, because not everyone have an understanding about how to do it, how to achieve it. Our next keynote speaker is Alexei Belyakov. Everybody knows Skolkovo. Skolkovo is like a foundation for startups, and recently they've had a startup village. There was great interest. A lot of people visited it. And still, we would like to hear about the new topic of corporate accelerators and the practice working with government companies, state companies.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Really, I'm here with the very important companies, Siemens, Cifra, and the colleagues who are here in the audience. They think that, well, we have such major companies, and where is the place for startups in this large story called Industry 4.0? And is there any place for startups in such large-scale industries such as machinery, aviation industry, space industry, etc.? Our experience demonstrates that there is such a position for the startups, and I would like to demonstrate just briefly that there are some examples of successful companies, companies residents in Skolkovo Fund that work in a new paradigm that is called Industry 4.0. And these companies successfully implement their solutions based on major platforms such as Sub and Siemens platforms into the Russian and foreign companies. At this slide, I would like briefly tell you about the development of our ecosystem, Skolkovo ecosystem. This is a real system for the startups, and nowadays we have about 2,000 participants who generated about 50 billion rubles, which is a tremendous increase. In comparison with the previous 2 years, it's about 20% increase, which we observed in 2017, and this is the attraction of the private investments. About 8 billion rubles was attracted from private investments, and I would say this is much more money than the government money that is being spent for support of this project. About 30,000 workplaces has been generated in this ecosystem, and it's very important to understand that these workplaces are created not at the territory of the Skolkovo Innovation Center. These are workplaces that are created all the country over, and in particular here in Ekaterinburg we have a partnership Technopark, Universitetsky Technopark, and the residents of this Technopark automatically become our residents. So in Skolkovo, we are saying that Skolkovo is not just the place on the map, not a location on the map. This is not just the philosophy. We are moving forward towards it. And since recently, any company can participate in Skolkovo, being not situated in Skolkovo. We pay a lot of attention to our interaction with our key partners, and here you see that part of those partners are being represented by large-scale industrial companies such as Boeing, which opened a research center at our territory, and this research center is involved in analytics for engine service. FANUC, as you see, who is involved in construction of the engineering center for adaptation of their solutions, robotic solutions for different companies. Company 7 that is also opening the digital technology center that are going to be involved in modeling of composite materials. Renova, Rosatom, of course, which is one of the leading companies in terms of the digital agenda in Russia. And jointly with Rosatom, in the beginning of this year, we have implemented a large-scale competition related. It is called Vector, and we are actively involved in attraction of private investment to resident companies. In particular, we have established a foundation, Venture Foundation. It was an industrial fund that was established, and this fund is associated with the investments into startups. Those companies that are involved in fast-forward production technologies, process technologies, and we have such investors as United Construction Corporations, Helicopters of Russia, which also accounts for the importance of these technologies, which are very important for the Russian corporations, both for the helicopter producers and for the United Construction Corporation. It is very important to follow those actions that take place outside the scope of these large-scale companies. And this work is being performed within our foundation. And we also see the development of Skoltech. This is a university that is located at our premises. We have more than 600 students, about 90 professors, the majority of which are the professors who arrived from the Western countries, from abroad. And Skoltech is a kind of a feed for the environment, for the new project, for the new successful startups. And these startups come out of Skoltech. Here you see the slide with some figures. If you are interested, I can just say a couple of words about these figures. Here in the right corner you see the revenue dynamics, and green shows this revenue that is being generated by startups, by small companies. Gray shows this part of revenue that is being generated by the innovation centers that are being opened at our premises by large corporations. For our ecosystem, we have 80% of revenues generated by 20% of startups. And the participants of our ecosystem has a revenue about $1 million. We see that the level of development of startups is not homogeneous. You see the stars, and you see some startups that are lagging behind a little bit. Some do not demonstrate good dynamics, and if they do not demonstrate, they will not have the status of our residents. We are trying to improve the penetration of our companies to the Western markets. We understand the dynamics of the Russian market, and we understand that it's not sufficiently enough to account for the investment that has been brought into their development. So far, we're trying to attract different accelerators and different companies to promote our companies to European, to Western European, and to other markets. So here at this slide you see the demonstration of a few examples of successful examples as we consider them to be successful. So we see the companies that are advanced in terms of technologies. So under technologies we understand technology industry 4.0. It's the robotics, computer simulation, and the added reality. And recently I have seen this slide and I saw ranking of these technologies, and on that slide you could see the influence of these technologies into production, and we would say that the winning direction would be related to computer simulations and calculations. What is related to KI systems or digital copies. As we have already discussed today, Siemens representative has already mentioned about it. So, and this is a stage at which we see the foundation of solutions, principally new solutions that makes some types of products prevailing over their competitors. Of course, this is a kind of optimization, but at the stage of design, we see that some solutions are really very important. And here I would name the company CompMech Lab. This is a company that came out of St. Petersburg Polytechnical Institute, and it was awarded with a prize here in the INNOPROM about a year ago. And this company opened its division in Skolkovo, and it is related to implementation of aviation projects, and they work in close cooperation with Aviation Corporation at 7, and we think that this is a good demonstration of such companies that will outline the future of the production technologies in the nearest time. So that is why I would say that CompMech Lab have a lot of different foreign clients in China, in Germany, and other developing markets. And I would also like to speak separately about the direction that is related to predictive analytics. It has already been discussed today, and the company Data Advance, which is one of our oldest residents, it's our resident for about 6 years in Skolkovo Fund. So they're related to preventive analytics, and just recently they have implemented a project jointly with S7 on the predictive analytics for Airbus aircrafts A300 or A350. They simulated the engine behavior, and the feasibility stage was considered to be successful, and now they're speaking about expanding the cooperation in this respect for the entire fleet of aircrafts. And also we have Sigma company that developed the platform for the internet. This is one of our home products which is being successfully implemented for aviation industry. I would also like to mention about such a direction as additive production. We understand that digits should should lead us to new types of productions, and we should understand that it would be related to new quality, new flexibility for production. And here we would like to draw special attention to the company INNOPROM that has developed 3D printers for composite material printing with additive technologies. We've been negotiating for quite a long while with this company. We were discussing the cooperation with different other companies, with the helicopters. Although we haven't found the clients here in Russia, we managed to find clients abroad. And now this company is at the feasibility stage of a project. Even though it's a feasibility project, it's being an investment project, and this is a joint project with Airbus, and Airbus is planning to use 3D printers for printing some components for the airplanes. And we see that if we look at the business dynamics of our companies in Europe, for example, it's much higher, it's much better than in Russia. And in this respect, we pay a lot of emphasis to our cooperation with our foreign partners. In particular, in respect to 3D printing, it is very important to understand the story that we have with titanium powder. As far as we see different types of 3D printers, we see different technology implemented in this respect, and we see that the quality of powder should be very high, though it must be cheap. And in this respect, we are enhancing the development of such companies that are involved in technologies. And as for the companies related to as to the companies that are related to augmented reality, we see that there are different companies in this respect. There are interesting companies involved. It would be companies which would train the engineers, experts in engine maintenance. If I'm not mistaken, they are working in cooperation with the United Corporation, and this is a very good example of joint cooperative effort. And I think this is also a very good example of cooperation with Siemens. And this is not just an example; it's just the demonstration of solutions that are being proposed to the clients that provide competitive advantages for different clients. And the first question that is being asked: well, guys, can you integrate your system with SAP? If you can, then the dialogue is being continued, and if this dialogue is continued, then we would speak about the laboratory that is going to be established, and this is one more initiative that would assist in implementation of the products of our residents. And in conclusion, I would also like to say about an instrument that we are developing at the moment. This is the instrument that is called Corporate Accelerator. This is a mechanism that is being launched by a large corporation. It allows to monitor and scout different technologies that are being developed outside the scope of the large corporation. These are technologies that we would call technologies developed by startups. Speaking of the problems or speaking of the issues being solved by the accelerators, we would say that issue number one is the diversification of the revenue, and this is the problem that we've been solving together with Rosatom. Rosatom raised the task for us. The problem that Rosatom has is the fact that the revenue from the main businesses is stagnating, and that is why Rosatom is actively creating new integrators that would look for the opportunities in other branches of industry. And we were asked to find the opportunities, and we were asked to find the companies that would work in synergy for the main businesses, and we demonstrated that such companies are available. And these are companies coming from 3D printing, also predictive analytics, digital copies, and we have found about 20 companies of this kind. Some of them are at the stage of implementation, some of them will be tested, and we hope it will be invested from Rosatom Venture Fund. And one of the companies comes out from Ekaterinburg. It's called CoreBrick. This company developed a kind of sorbent that allows purification of the liquid radioactive waste. And we are actively involved in cooperation with this company, and now they are working in cooperation with 12. Probably without such an instrument, this company would never be noticed by a large corporation. And we are going to test these instruments, and so in this respect we are speaking about the increase of the revenues and improvement of digital technologies and increase of the level of internal internship. In this respect, we are speaking about the problem of the issue of implementing the corporate accelerator, and you see that the companies are paying the money, and here on the right you see the name of the companies who we are working on implementing the joint projects. You see different companies, including INNOPROM, S7 and Rosatom, and these projects are being implemented in the scope of different projects. And as Igor has already mentioned, we should work hard all together to use this instrument in solving the issues related to digitization of industry. Thank you very much, Alexei. Thank you. Just recently, we had the Gos Corporation Rostech who joined this initiative. Here we have the Director on Communications. Andrei Malutin, and we would like to give the floor to him.
Good day, dear colleagues. I'm not a communications director, but nevertheless, I'll continue. I represent Britain INNOPROM company, that's a daughter company of Rostech, and we are the internal integrator on information technologies inside the company. The group is very big, that incorporates about 800 companies. And we have a lot of sectors of industry represented by our companies. And our job as an integrator is to be like a front for the external IT world to test new IT solutions, new experiences, new technologies, and after that, after testing, after expert assessment, offer these to our companies, offer new solutions. When we talk about IT and IT development in Russia at this stage, I really want to compare it with wine making in Russia, because a lot of principles and methods of approach which are working in wine industry, they can be used in IT. You know that bad wine can always spoil your meal. In order to get good grapes, you need a lot of conditions. You need to observe a lot of conditions: proper soil, big number of sunny days, climate, etc. If you try to get a good wine from scratch, well, you need at least 10 years. And special tastes can be achieved only when producers blend various kinds of grape to get a distinct taste. Our objective is to develop modern digital technologies within Rostech companies and help Russian innovations develop within Russian companies. So our objective is to make sure that our companies have good wine on their table. And at the same time, we realize that for a new IT product to be developed in Russia, well, a lot of time is needed. That's why we as a company are open for partnership with everyone who's present here, with all representatives of innovative and IT business. And to this end, we have opened the so-called testing center, the center of testing and expert assessment of those products which are available at the Russian market currently. We're testing both hardware and new software products, and we issue our assessment about applicability of those for our companies. We have created and we're expanding the database of manufacturers in information technologies, so that our companies have this information readily available about what the market can offer today. And it is our call to the participant of the market to be part of that initiative. And our third key initiative is the establishment of digital laboratories in the near future, on the basis of which we would be able to test the best solutions in the industry and use that to come up with integrated solutions. Because as you probably know, digitization is a combination of solutions coming from different pieces. There are sensors, data transmission, data processing systems, and in order for a product to be implemented, we need to test various elements of that new implementation in order to come up with an integrated product which we would like to see in our companies. And unfortunately, digitization today is not an ARP where all integrated solutions have been developed. No, today we're talking about the need to create all the solutions we need ourselves. That's why we're really interested in such initiatives as GRID, and we're really looking forward to attracting partners from Russia and other countries, because coming back to winemaking, I believe those good products which were produced in the Russian market, if we look at those, then those good wine came from grape which was imported from some other country, or wine was made by using some foreign technologies. So we don't have 10 years to develop the technologies, because we need those here and now. We need them tomorrow. And to this end, we want to actively involve the IT, the products which were developed by Skolkovo, and use the experience which Siemens can offer, which SAP can offer, in order to create joint projects, joint ventures, to develop the added value which our companies need in Rostech. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrei. Andrei is first deputy of General Director of RT Inform. Thank you very much, and I think that Rostech offers great potential for cooperation with our colleagues. All our panelists have had their say, and we come to experts from the first row. Danila Selikanov, Chief Specialist of on Innovations in M&K. Can I have a mic, please? Good day, dear colleagues. Magnitogorsk, metallurgical enterprise, and my question is about people, because we talked about numbers about readiness of the companies. You mentioned 14% of the companies have a high degree of readiness for innovation, and for Industry 4.0, I don't know if Magnitogorsk Metallurgical Combine is ready for that. In how I feel it, if you'd ask me about Industry 4.0, maybe only every 10th heard about it, and only every 100th person knows what it's about. And somebody says, let's be in it together, let's work on it together, but my question is, with whom? Yes, there are specialized subdivisions, subdivisions which are in R&D, and there are specialists who can be like conductors, a media of those technologies in the enterprises, but it's not enough to have dozens of pilot projects or full-fledged projects. We don't have enough staff, enough people. Yes, we can talk about training. Yes, we have created an R&D center, and its main job is to train highly qualified, highly skilled professionals. Very well, but once we do one or two projects, somebody else will buy this specialist. He will feel that he is in demand, and he will most likely go to Singapore, simply because he will be offered more money there. So I will ask my question more specific, speaking about metal industry or traditional machine building industry. In order to be a full-fledged participant of the Industry 4.0 and to have your own qualified staff, where do you keep them? Within your company or outside, within R&D centers? And how do you keep them motivated to stay and work for you? Because these are the people whom you will be communicating to. These are the people who will be conductors of those technologies in the companies. And these are the people whom you will be offering more money for them to work for you. So what to do? Thank you very much for the question. I think that we have an ASD company which is in human resources and training. And Natalia, let's start with you. SAP. Thank you. Well, I have some good news for the colleague. It's not all that bad, and I might share a few hints from the experience that we have on the Russian market. Example number one is an LMK company. An LMK CEO, for about 2.5 years ago, started looking into digitization, realizing its importance, but it's important to make it bigger than just IT and make it bigger than their own company. As Igor said, process automation and IT technologies as such is not the most important thing. Most importantly is that all people in every part of the company understand and feel that by using digital technologies, they can perform their business in a different way. And what we've done with an LNK together, we've opened an innovation laboratory. That's physical space, physical people, and we organized design thinking sessions. It's like infected ants principle. We gathered people from different parts of the organization, from production, from material supply, from operations, from repair, and we trained them in how you can find digital scenarios and in how you can develop those ideas in specific areas. Then we send those people back to their divisions, and we got a lot of feedback, a lot of interesting ideas from different divisions, and we worked with those ideas in the lab and then developed them into scenarios which we sent to various organizations. So that's first story. What is important is to infect, so to say, different parts of the organization, and many companies do interesting things with that. This Friday, I'm visiting Stary Oskol. That's the home of Metal Invest, where Metal Invest is opening an innovation center right to their manufacturing facilities. That's, again, a physical space which is, let's say, better organized. It includes the stands there, and we open our own innovation stand there so that the manufacturing people can, well, test the ideas there. This is about making innovations closer to business, and this is about finding the model which makes it possible for all the people involved in the business to get a hands-on experience. Another important thing is the management attitude. Honestly speaking, if president or the CEO of the company is convinced it has a great idea about something, then it results in that everyone else in the company gets infected by it. If he or she plays hockey, everyone plays hockey, and he or she is infected with digitization, then everyone's into digitization. So management attitude is important. And I would also like to mention a story about the future generations. I think one of the key issues, if we talk about metal companies like Magnitogorsk, for example, you said about keeping people, motivating them to stay. We spend a lot of effort and resources to raising future generations. And in the morning, we signed a trilateral agreement with a pipe making company and Ural State University, so that the students would be able to work on the tasks which are relevant for the pipe making company by using their facilities, by using the facilities of the university, so that they could continue working on that after they graduate. And we have 8 laboratories like that. The one in Gubkinsk University, where oil and gas is in Misis, then St. Petersburg University. So bringing digital technologies closer to people who will start working tomorrow, this is also the important part of the program. And an extreme example, for a year now, we've had a laboratory, innovation laboratory in Arolyonak. Arolyonak, that's like a health spa at the Black Sea in the Crimea for children. We have 900 children in the winter and the summer spending, well, vacation there. And as a minimum, every child gets a tour of our laboratory where they learn about really cool technologies. And there is a section where children can attend science classes. And if you multiply 3,000 by 4 and 8 by 900, well, that's about the number of children from 12 to 17 years old who go through our science laboratory in Arolyonak place. So I can give you more ideas. So you see, it's all under control. The question needs to be asked into microphone, otherwise the interpreter can't hear. Well, they do not turn into it all of a sudden. It's just the colleague is asking a question whether it's possible. It is a process. Well, people who are, let's say, farther from Moscow, in my opinion, they're really hungry. They're after everything that's new. And I don't see that problem. Whenever we come to Lipetsk or Oskol or Surgut, everything new is implemented actually much easier than in Moscow. So I don't think there's this problem. Thank you, Natalia. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to add? Well, really, I'm not afraid that there will be whether there will be people to implement the projects. It will be just about the survival of those companies who are not involved into it. Those companies who are using digital technologies to enhance their competitiveness, they're winning on the market. Yes, they are raising their staff, they're working with the universities, they're investing into their own laboratories, they're opening R&D projects, but most importantly is about the changing of management culture. I have to be open to those new technologies. And today, I have heard that, well, a traditional director general, yes, he might have heard something about digitalization. Then there were nanotechnologies a couple of years ago. So let me appoint a director on digitization, and he will digitize my company. Well, that doesn't work like that, because digitization covers all areas of the enterprise. That's about new business model, new business ideas. It's not a traditional approach anymore. And if you look at successful enterprises like Google or startups in Skolkovo, they will find the people, the specialists. And all the enterprises who cannot do it, they will be gone in 10, 15 years. Thank you.
Igor, please. I would just like to tell you briefly about the same topic. I'm absolutely agree that, speaking of the infected ants principle, I completely agree with it. This is really very effective. This is what I have started with. This is not the IT guys who have to think on how to transform the metallurgical plant. These are the metallurgical people who need to have an idea on what to do, because they know everything about their businesses. And from this point of view, we see a certain gap, a serious gap. On one hand, Natalia is saying that we should educate and we should train the students or school children, but they will come in 10 years. But what we're supposed to do today and tomorrow? Nothing new is invented about it. We just have the corporate training program. We have to teach metallurgical expert the digitization. And my recommendation is we need to educate them, and there is nothing else to be advised. If we address to Google's experience, we understand that it should not come from the CEO, but it should come from the people responsible for certain work areas. And in order to be practical in my advice, instead of just trying to imagine what people should be, we demonstrate at our stand the program of free training in digitization for industrial companies. What is it? This is 20 hours of online training for people who are not experienced in it. Any employee can get such a training. It would be free. It would be video course or video lectures by experts in these spheres. And the management of your company will have an idea of what this is about. What are the best practices? How these practices shall be used? And maybe they will have some idea of digitization. And maybe one day SAP or Siemens will not invite them for work because they are not the IT guys. They are just educated managers who know how to use the digital technologies in their companies. And I think you should not even wait for us. You should proceed in this direction, because there are different directions, such as design thinking, different education centers where they can provide education for the people. But in general, digitization will come when people start understanding on how they will implement it at their work areas. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also like to argue this approach, the approach of infected ants. Speaking from experience, when we implement something new, when we implement the innovations, we see the two stages of implementation. First, we see the initiative from top. When the head of the company and the top management should get infected with an idea. When getting the ideas, they should move them from top to the bottom. And when this first wave stops, and when it gets less powerful, we see the second part of it, when the initiative comes from the bottom. And we see the second stage, when we see the people, the experts in the workshops getting involved. Probably this would be the proper thing to do, and we see the examples that are being demonstrated by many companies when different initiatives before Industry 4.0 were implemented. And we just see that digitization is just a new initiative that is just at the first stage, when it has to be launched from the top. And speaking about the HR training, this is really a very important issue. And in our UIE, we see such a dynamics, and we just ask the businesses, and we see that they are not concerned in administrative barriers. They understand that HR problem is really very important for us. We see just little time left before we end the work today. I would like to give the floor to Denis Kasimov just for a very quick question. Maybe you will ask our guests. Dear colleagues, my name is Denis Kasimov. I am the CEO for Clover Company. Many people know about our company. We are related to implementation of our developments in predictive analytics. So we are involved in implementation of our solutions. Thank you very much for wonderful presentations. It is really very important to acknowledge that we are in the same wave with our colleagues, in the same tune with the colleagues, and we are working hard in transforming the industry. But there is a comment. Everyone, especially including the Russian-German relationship, everyone understands very well. Everyone understands what the plant in Germany is, what the factory in Germany is, and what the factory in Russia is. And one can imagine Sapsan trains traveling between Moscow and St. Petersburg, or trains that circulate around Moscow, in suburbs of Moscow. And this is a tremendous gap. This is a tremendous gap because of the fact that in our country this process is a bit slower, because it is historically predetermined. We had different grounds for it, but nevertheless. Hence, I would just like to comment that maybe it will be a new thing for you, but the electrical trains will also be incorporated into digital world, and those trains that are circulating around Moscow, there are about 300 units, 300 trains are being processed, are being analyzed. And the largest projects in which we are involved, and this is the largest project in Europe related to predictive analytics for the railway transport. This is Locotech company, and we've been analyzing about 7,000 sections, and we are analyzing the technical conditions of those units. And here I would like to invite all of you to attend any of the train depots in September. You can choose any of about 50. We can show you how we are transforming the processes, and this is the experience that we would like to demonstrate to the whole world. And here comes a question. Maybe it's kind of challenging question. If we get back to an example of a Russian factory or a German factory, these factories are absolutely different, totally different. We've been installing the new machines, but these are just small pieces of a puzzle. But what these companies are supposed to do in order to be able to change the entire fleet of machines. This would take about 2 years of revenue, and even profit is going to be involved. How they would be able to install the new machines, where they would look for the funds, and how to explore it. Maybe you will give an answer to this. Well, just in case, I do have an answer to these questions, otherwise I would not be in the market. I would just like to, what is your question? What to do? What the companies would do if they don't have any sensors, machines, they just have old-fashioned machines, but they're eager to be involved in the digital world of the future that everyone is talking about. Well, here I would just like to rely on the experience of our company and those customers who we are in cooperation with. As this is what Lokotech is doing, and Lokotech is in your group. They're just taking and they start with very simple things. They say, well, yes, we want our machines and to provide us with the data. For us to be able to take the decisions for the business. But Lokotech can afford it. But who cannot afford it? Everyone can afford it. This is just an issue of economic effect. In average, we see that, speaking from experience, connection of all of the machines to monitoring system will be paid back in about 6 months. This is a clear process that can be easily calculated. An effect can be achieved by 200 of the Russian companies. We see different types of machines that are being in operation for about 40 years, and also some modern, sophisticated Siemens machines. The matter is that you need to get receiving the data from the workshop. If there is no data, there is nothing to discuss. Then we will not have any digitization at all. And if we come to a question what to do, just do. Just start. And I'm absolutely in agreement with what has been said. And moreover, I would like to add one more element. Maybe not everyone has noticed it, but maybe you've noticed it. The government invests a lot into this effort. We have the new loans, the credit line that is given for the digitization. So the money is provided by the government. The technology is available. Everything is in the access. It's just the question remains. We need these infected ants to proceed in the process. We see that every project or every client who will see it's the same result. In 6 months, they get the payback. They see the return of investment. I'm not going to sound all of the companies involved in operation of Rostec and other corporations, but this is the fact. On Wednesday, we are going to have a meeting at our RUIE, and we're going to have the meeting with representatives from all businesses and everyone who is willing to join the process. You are welcome, and we're just saying that we are getting the resources for business digitization, and we see that the mechanism is existing. Probably this is the last question coming from Alexander Borodich. You are welcome if he is in the audience. Is here. If not, then maybe there is a question from the audience. You're welcome. Because we are coming to the end of our session. If people are not willing, so we see that someone is willing. Please introduce yourself. Andrei Nikitin, company Cifra. I have a question to Andrei Malutin. We understand that Rostech is a very large corporation. You have different companies involved. And you have tremendous experience, and we understand that this process is a little changed by how do you see it? What is the right way of interacting with the vendors of IT solutions? Could you describe in details the mechanism of effective interaction with the suppliers of IT solutions? Just briefly, I would say that it's really very interesting to cooperate with the company Cifra. And we would be interested to have a meeting a little bit later and discuss the ways of our cooperation. But as I have already mentioned, if we speak in general, we see ourselves as the front office that is testing different solutions available in the market. And we have an understanding of the need of our companies, the level of their development, what projects they have, and what are their target programs. And knowing the demand, knowing the need, we would be the front. We're touching the solutions, and we're trying to integrate them between the different manufacturers, and then we will be able to offer a kind of a complex product. This is an approach that we demonstrate, but with great pleasure we would be interested in having a meeting with you. Thank you very much. I think that just at the end, we had a very intense discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of the participants, for such a response, for a feedback, and for opportunity to visit such a meeting. And I think that we will be able to continue the discussion at other different platforms. Thank you.